Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Think Future. My name's Chris Calabucas, and once again we're coming at you live from deep in the heart of Silicon Valley, California. We're talking innovation, startups, the future. Not necessarily those, and not necessarily in that order. If you're watching on YouTube, smack that subscribe button and hit that bell so you can be notified when a new show comes online. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast service, please subscribe and please drop a note on Apple Podcast. I greatly appreciate it. So I was reading an article today on Wired Magazine, which I never read anymore. I never ever read any more Wired Magazine because of where it's gone. It's basically not Wired Magazine anymore, because Wired Magazine used to be all about the future. It used to be about innovations. It used to be about what's happening next. But now it's very rarely about that. So when I come across an article in Wired Magazine that actually is about the future, then I read it. So amazing the way the internet has just busted up content so that you can only need to read the content you're reading. It's kind of like buying singles all the time instead of having to buy a whole album, if anyone gets that reference. But the article was called, "Can Society Learn from the Mistakes of Futurism?" And I thought that was a really interesting title. Mistakes of Futurism. What the heck is a mistake of futurism? Is it because as futurists we have incorrectly predicted the future? Well, yeah, that comes with the territory. We don't know the future. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. If we knew exactly what was going to happen, then don't you think we'd be multimillionaires by now? We'd be able to figure it all out? Of course we don't know what's going to happen, but we do use signals and clues and telltales and trends to lead us towards what we think the future is going to be. And I think one of the things they mention is that people will be very similar to the way they are today. We'll just have more gadgets. And I think that's completely wrong too. So I don't know which futurists they were talking to. But if you ask me, most futurists that I know, most real futurists that I know, understand that humankind will not be the same way as they are today, just with more gadgets. That's why shows that are set in the far future, like Star Trek and things like that, really don't portray the reality of what human beings will be like 2,000 years from now, 300 years from now, 500 years from now. We have no idea what those people will be like 500 years from now. What we're doing, we're portraying in those shows are human beings of today living in a conceived world of that future. They're still human beings of today, just like in the original Star Trek and this current Star Trek Discovery, any of the Star Treks that are here, even though the stories are set 200, 300, 400, 500, 1,000 years in the future, these are still human beings of today set in that time frame, because the human beings of the future will look nothing like, first of all, they'll look nothing like the people who are on these shows, because by that time there will be so much intermarriage and interbreeding between the human races that we will all be the same, look more or less the same. There won't be that differentiation of black, white, Asian any longer. That's going to be gone. In fact, we won't look the same, we won't talk the same, because more than likely English won't be the language that we're all speaking. We won't have the same politics. We won't have, do you think we're still going to have hundreds of years from now the issues between Russia and Ukraine and all of those kind of politics? We might have different kinds of politics, or maybe we'll have gone beyond politics by then. None of us can really imagine what things are going to be like in the far, far future. But one thing I do know, or at least I'm more sure of, is that all of these visions of the future that many futurists have come up with look futuristic, right? I mean, you hear from them saying, oh, it's kind of like, have you seen that video for The Line, this supposed new city that they're building in the northern part of Saudi Arabia, which is just like a single straight line with mirrors on the side, and it looks so futuristic on the inside. All the buildings are futuristic and everything's futuristic, and it's all future. That's not what the future is going to look like. That's not what the future is going to look like. If we do it right, if we do the future right, the technology, the future will not look futuristic. The future will look the way we want it to look, the way each of us individually wants it to look. If some of us want the future to look futuristic, it will. If some of us want the future to look pastoral, it will. Technology, as it gets more and more advanced, disappears from view. If you ask me, the future will be less billboards, less signs, less technology, less cell phones, less goggles, fewer and fewer gadgets, because these gadgets will be integrated into our reality, into our bodies, into our surroundings. We won't have more gadgets. We won't have more visible gadgets. We won't have futuristic towers unless we decide to live in futuristic towers. See, this is the thing about the extension of futurism, if you ask me, is that we're going to go down more of a path of more personalization. We're going to leave, and you're starting to see it happen over a while, because we used to build media for the masses. We used to create media for the masses. We used to create everything for the masses. And what's happening is that the interest groups are getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. I remember 10, 15 years ago, they were talking about how they couldn't create media for audiences of less than 1 million. It was impossible for them to do that. But those audiences are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. If you think about it, if you're a pet owner, you're not just interested in dogs, or you're not just interested in your particular breed, or you're not just interested. So you are an individual, and you have completely personalized interests. You may be part of one subgroup or another, but you as an individual are completely unique and different from every other human being on the planet. The future will be attuned specifically to you. We're seeing a little bit of it in the signals in the data feeds that you're getting from your social media. The AIs are looking at you specifically and going, what does this person want right now? Now, today, all of that is wrapped around sales because they need to make money. But eventually, we're going to get to a point where it's going to be so subtle and so informed that you're going to get exactly the future you want. We're going to zoom down to the one-on-one territory. Right now we're still targeting groups, which is why you get things that are incorrect. But eventually we're going to target everyone's future down to the individual human being. And individual human beings are going to get the future they want. If they want a futuristic future, they can have a futuristic future. If they want a pastoral future, they can have a pastoral future. I said that already. Individualism. Hyper-personalization. That's personally where I think the future is going to go. And if you don't want a futuristic future, then you don't have to have a futuristic future. You will have the future that you want. Or if you don't have the future that you want, you will have the future that is given to you, which is why you need to make a choice and make sure that the future that you want is that you get is the future that you want. You need to step up and speak up and tell the systems what you want for the future. That's it for me for today. See you next time, and until then, don't forget to think future.